Hey everyone, this time we read Mega Man 3 by Salvatore Pane. So I really like this one. It's probably one of my favorite books from the Boss Fight book series. In it, Salvatore walks us through not only the game's development, its history, but also goes into a lot of the nostalgia he feels for the game, and tries to figure out why, or at least I'm guessing that's what he was doing, and also comments on the retro gaming scene at the time. Now, his story really resonated with me because it felt like I was reading kind of a version of my own story. The games are a little bit different, but it's rather similar how we got to where we are. He talks a lot about rediscovering the NES games and Super NES games when he got older, and that's kind of the same thing I did. Like, we both seem to have started collecting games around the same time. Then the story obviously branches off, but it was just really cool reading this because it just felt so much like I was reading my own story. And also the series and its origins, that sort of thing. There's a lot of talk about the people who left during and before the development, which I thought were a lot more interesting than the overall story. There was one game in particular which was brought up that I found just way more interesting than Mega Man. Sorry to say that, but I just did. And that's this one, which was Cocoron. And Cocoron was made by the developers who were working on Mega Man, who left Capcom, and then went off to make this. Well, it's just kind of an offshoot from Mega Man, and you can see a lot of the inspiration from Mega Man in Cocoron, and you can see some of the things that would eventually be in the Mega Man series. It's just one of these weird things that kind of added to Salvatore's overall story, and it was one of those things that I kind of latched onto because I just found this game so interesting. Well, I found the story of Mega Man's history and also the series' development over time. It was really Salvatore's talk about nostalgia and game collecting that I found way more interesting. Throughout the book, Salvatore talks about the rise in video game prices, especially retro games. This was something that I didn't really notice too much because I kind of got out of collecting in about 2002 or so and got back into it in about 2007, 2008. And the prices hadn't changed a whole lot. It wasn't until about 2014, 2015 when I noticed that the prices of games had just exploded, and a lot of the games that I bought for cheap were way more expensive than they honestly should be. Salvatore talks about how YouTube affected the retro gaming community and also kind of how it brought the retro gaming community together. He does this a few different ways. One of them is by doing an interview with James Rolfe, who is the angry video game nerd. It's kind of cool to hear his perspective and then Salvatore's comments on that perspective. It was probably one of my favorite parts of this book, mostly because I just liked his talk on nostalgia and on game collecting and on how YouTube has affected retro gaming prices and also the collecting scene. It was just a really fun thing to read about, and it was one of those things where I could see, yeah, this is why I went out and bought a bunch of these games, because I saw YouTube videos on them and wanted to try them out. I didn't really think about the prices, to be honest, but I haven't really concerned myself with the prices of retro games in probably like the last 5 or 6 years. So I don't really have anything bad to say about this book. I thoroughly enjoyed reading it, even if the subject of Mega Man 3 was really not something I cared too much about. I cared more about his talk on nostalgia, video game collecting, the retro gaming community, and that sort of thing. The book gave me a few things to just kind of think about and mull over. I don't know if that's what he wanted when he was writing this book, but it gave me some ideas for other things that I might want to do later on. I cannot stress how much I really enjoyed reading this book. Anyway, guys, that's going to wrap it up. I hope you enjoyed this episode, and please let me know what you think in the comments below. Have a great day, everybody.